In this episode, I'm going to talk about a topic that nobody seems to want to discuss, but I feel is a significant variable when choosing this career, and that's pilot pay. Welcome back to Aviator Inspirations, where I take the mystery out of the aviation industry. So if you're new here, consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. My goal in this video is to explain to you the game of snakes and ladders that pilots have to play as we navigate our careers. After all, you come out of flight training with $80,000 to $100,000 of debt, and you can't really pay that back with hopes and dreams. Disclaimer, I'm not going to list specific companies or what they pay, and the numbers are from my research and personal experience in North America, especially Canada, so the numbers might vary in your country or by the time you watch this video, but this should give you a rough idea of what you can expect in this career. I also can't cover every variable or scenario, so if I miss a job you're interested in, just ask away in the comment section. With that out of the way, let's start from the beginning with a brand new 250-hour pilot looking for their first job. That's what it's gonna feel like after you've sent dozens of resumes. Check out my video on how to find your first pilot job. Unfortunately, with such low time, your options are limited and you have to grab anything you can find. That's why companies are expecting you to work for near poverty wages just so you could build your time. Flying is such a hard industry to break into, and some people want it that badly that they are even willing to work for free. So, this low-paying pilot culture has developed. Right now you have two options. One, the first is to spend another $10,000 and become a flight instructor. The advantage is that you get paid to fly and build your knowledge and experience. The disadvantage is that you are only paid when you fly, and Class 4 flight instructors start at $20 an hour. If you get hired at a busy flight school with a lot of flight instructors, you might only fly 15 to 25 hours a week, and that equates to $1,200 to $2,000 a month, or $14,400 to $24,000 a year. If you upgrade to the next instructor level, a Class 3, your salary gets bumped up by $5 an hour. That's why I say you will have more success in smaller towns or communities, because you have less pilots competing for the same jobs. 2. Grab any ramp or dispatch position you can get your hands on. The pay varies quite a lot, but it's around $20,000 to $32,000 a year. The big disadvantage is that you are not flying. It could take as short as 6 months to as long as 2 years before you touch an airplane. And in that time, your flying skills are getting rusty. Of course, there are miscellaneous jobs that you can get, like flying skydivers, towing banners or gliders, but those are all seasonal jobs and you will still end up going with option 1 or 2 sooner or later. Alright, you've been working for a couple of years, you've ignored your parents who have told you to get a real job, and you've built 500 to 1,000 hours. Congratulations! During that time, you might have been lucky enough to get onto a Cessna 206 and bump up your salary to $30,000. With 1,000 hours, your options are now improving, and you again have two options. 1. Flying a Cessna Grand Caravan VFR with up to 9 passengers, your salary increases to $38,000 a year. And later, if you get trained as single pilot IFR, that salary jumps up to $42,000 to $54,000 a year. Great success! The disadvantage, however, is that you are still logging single-engine flight time, when what you need is multi-engine flight time. Starting salaries for a first officer on a Navaje or King Air are back down to $24,000 to $36,000 a year. 2. Option 2 is trying to get onto a multi-engine airplane sooner and sacrifice the higher salaries of that single-pilot IFR caravan job. The advantage with this option is that you are building multi-engine flight time and experience so that you can upgrade to captain. The disadvantage of this option is that you are still broke for another year and you can't pay off your student debt. Whichever of these two options you choose, the goal is to build 1,500 hours and get your ATPL so that you can upgrade to captain on a King Air or Beech 1900. A captain position pays $40,000 to $54,000 a year, And if that sounds familiar, then you're right. That is the same salary as a single pilot IFR on a caravan position. But of course, you are now building that so ever important multi-engine pilot in command flight time. Wow, that was a tough 3 to 4 years. But here you are with 1,500 to 2,000 hours, your ATPL, your 500 multi-PIC flight time. You can now apply to the airline. Of course, if you wanted to stop there and you enjoy the type of flying that you do, then you can have quite a comfortable lifestyle. As a second year air ambulance captain makes $70,000 a year, and a third year captain makes $80,000 a year. If you wanted to branch out and go fly floats or do bush flying, of course the real bush flying era ended a while ago, but there are still flying and fishing lodges out there, and the pay starts at $20,000 a year all the way up to $70,000. But if you have your heart set on the airlines or you've always wanted to fly a jet, then the next journey of your pilot career is about to begin. Just like before, you now have two options. 1. Become a corporate pilot. If you never wanted to fly for the airlines but you still want to fly a jet, then this option is for you. You can find a first officer position on a Falcon 10 with as low as 800 hours. But most positions start with 1,500 hours with an ATPL, so I still recommend getting that multi-engine PAC flight time before choosing this option. The first thing to know is that these jobs are very hard to find. It helps if you have an internal reference, and the vacancy rates for corporate flying jobs are quite low. The pay, however, is much higher, and first officer salaries start at $41,000 to $49,000 a year. Captain salaries range between $75,000 to $125,000 a year. But here's the catch. Corporate pilots are glued to their airplane. If the airplane goes, you go. And that's the difference in lifestyle between corporate and airline jobs. Corporate airplanes might only have one crew, sometimes 2 or 3, but that's the reason that you're always on call. If a client has to fly somewhere for a week, you sit there with the airplane. If you're lucky, you might get put up at a nice hotel with an expense card, but if you're not, your week away from home might not be as enjoyable as you would like. The other disadvantage of corporate flying is that you don't fly very much at all, maybe 250 to 300 hours a year. That makes it quite difficult to build up those 3,000 to 4,000 hours you need to upgrade to captain. Since captain positions rarely become vacant, you do have the time to sit in the right seat for 5 to 10 years, but remember, you are still making that lower first officer wage for that whole time. Another thing to consider is job security. Corporate clients and companies are always changing, and maybe one day the owner decides to sell his jet, or the company doesn't like you anymore and they fire you, or someone gets upgraded over you because there's no seniority system. In the corporate world, there are no guarantees, a lot of variables, and an ever-changing lifestyle. But the pay is high, the jets are fancy, and you don't spend a lot of time away from your family. 2. Become an airline pilot. This is the standard and stereotypical pilot job that everyone wants. So let's say you're a year 2 or 3 air ambulance captain or corporate pilot making an average salary of $80,000 a year, and you want to go to the airlines. If you don't have 4,000 to 5,000 hours, you're going to start at a regional airline. Regional airline first officers start at $40,000 a year, the same salary as a caravan pilot, and the upgrade time to captain is 1 to 3 years. Once you upgrade to captain though, the starting salary is back up to $70,000 a year. Since most mainline air carriers only hire through their regional airlines, it's very hard to skip this step with low time. You can expect to stay at a regional airline anywhere between 3 to 5 years before you get to fly at the mainline on a 737 or 787, Airbus, etc. And guess where your salary starts? As a first officer, you're back down to $56,000 a year. The captain upgrade will take another 3 to 5 years, and depending on the airplane type you get, your salary will range between $120,000 to $132,000 a year. Also, anytime you change airlines, you will always start at the year 1 pay scale. So my recommendation is to pick an airline you want to fly for and stay there. Because anytime you change an airline, your salary will always start at year 1. Flying for the airline has its many advantages, such as job security, a stable schedule, flight benefits, stocks, or other retirement package options. Your only job is to show up and fly the airplane. You don't have to load bags or fuel the airplane, none of that stuff. The disadvantages is that you work hard. You are away from your family 16 to 18 days a month, the grind up the seniority ladder is long, and if you don't like the city that you're based in, you have to commute on your days off and sometimes on your own dime. This whole journey of snakes and ladders has taken us about 15 years. Of course, it's best to start this career as young as possible if you want to fly at the airline level. Or find a place that you're most happy in this industry and which job suits your lifestyle. So my final thoughts on this topic. In flight school, nobody really tells you what your career is going to look like or what options are available to you. They just want to push you through their flight training and get your money. You're expected to figure things out on your own as you go, from where to get your first pilot job to what hours you need, where to find those hours, and not knowing what your financial outlook is going to look like for the first 15 years. I hope with this information you can now make a strategy for you and your career and mentally prepare yourself for the challenges ahead. If you know of anyone who will benefit from this information, share this video. Let's make it go viral, because I believe everyone deserves the right to know what their financial future holds. So thanks for watching, smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.